There's not many podcasts you join with the hosts laughing at each other, trying to press record. So welcome, everybody, to the Ishtar channel podcast. Today, we're revisiting a subject that we did in episode 8, which is looking at some spiritual myths that are still going around in the new age of spirituality. And we wanted to carry on debunking some of these myths for you because we think that it's really, really important and can be very helpful in just establishing some clarity for ourselves when we're looking at our spiritual path. So, Ishtar, I'm going to come to one that again comes up quite a lot, and I think that it's how the mind looks to really seek some meaning and purpose and understanding for what happens and why it happens. So let's speak to this idea that everything always happens for a reason and there's no coincidences in the world, and everything is literally on time with everything that we should be experiencing.
Yeah. And I know there's lots of people that won't agree with me on this, but once again, what I'm sharing with you is what I've learned from the 23 years of channeling and embodying the Council of 33 Masters. So I'm not asking you to agree with me, but I'm just going to share with you what has been shared with me. And yes, I think it's surprising because some of our new age myths are so embedded. But I don't know where this comes from. I feel that it comes from the whole sort of thing of, once again, going back to religion. But I think that whole sort of belief that we have to put everything in a box. We have to get everything tidy. We can't have any loose ends anywhere. So therefore, there's this whole belief that everything's written in stone. We all have a destiny, and every single part of that journey is written in stone. As soon as we wrap ourselves around that and attach ourselves to that belief, we actually then have to let go of the belief that we've been given free will here. Because you can't have free will and have everything written in stone. It doesn't work. You can't have it both ways. So I'm just going to ask you all to have a breath about that. Because if everything's written in stone, every time you take a breath, if every action you do, if every step you take, everything you create and manifest in your life is written in stone, then you have no free will. And I know for a fact, sitting with the council regularly, that free will is one of the most honored gifts that humanity's been given. And it's that whole consciousness of source coming into physicality, learning through free will, the power of choice of how to be that source spirit energy in a physical body. And having, that power to make a choice and to learn from those choices. So when we believe everything's set in stone and nothing gets changed, then, and there is no coincidence, all written out, and it's all been planned by some being in the sky who's sitting up there writing a book about it all, and he's got a book for each one of us. And I always say he, because I think about the masculine doing this, because it's very masculine, isn't it, writing the book, controlling everything, saying, this is, it's all going to happen like this, and you're going to choose this dress to wear today or that suit to wear today, and you're going to choose to meet this person today, and you're going to choose to do this today. When we're thinking about that being, that masculine being in the sky, controlling everything that we do, then our complete sovereignty and free will is taken away. So I really want you to think about that belief, that attachment to that belief in destiny being written in stone. But then I want to come back to the consciousness of source, which is the consciousness of creation. It's constantly creating. It's creating of itself again and again and again, spreading out expanding itself through this universe more and more and more. And the universe expands with it. So it's constantly creating, it's constantly learning, constantly renewing itself, regenerating itself all the time. And when we think about that, then we have to let go of that belief that there's this being that is perfect in whatever way we think is perfect, that is controlling everything, you know, and I think that's really the stuff of our nightmares, really, more than it is the stuff of our truth. Because, you know, it comes back to that gifting of who we are. We are the expression of source here on the earth, learning through the physical world how to be in the physical world and still maintain our source connection. And so we are in a very chaotic universe. We just have to look at the universe and look at all the meteors and the planets and the stars, you know, flowing through this universe, the trillions of galaxies, the black holes, all the different things that are happening in this universe. Before we even get to the human spirit or the human mind, just look at the physical matter of this universe. It's constantly in chaos. It's in a state of chaos. There is no one up there saying, well, this meteor is going to hit this meteor and it's going to happen now, and this star is going to explode now, and this planet's going to happen now, and this is going to happen now. It's very chaotic. And our world is very chaotic. Look around you. Look at nature. Nature is only controlled when we step into it and start controlling it. If we don't control nature in some way, we don't go and mow the lawn, and we don't trim the weeds, or we don't, you know, the forest grows over and it's very chaotic. There is no destiny about which weed is going to grow where and which tree is going to go where and where that rock's going to be there. It's a very chaotic. A volcano explodes. There's no God in the sky saying which rock's going to fall where. You know? And even if you believe that there's a God in the sky saying when that volcano is going to explode and which village is going to get destroyed, you know, I mean, it's a chaotic universe. So I feel that whenever we want to attach ourselves to this belief that everything has a reason to exist, then we are surrendering our free will. We're surrendering our responsibility about what we choose to create and manifest in our life through our own actions. We're surrendering the belief in the source consciousness that's constantly creating energy, and believing that there's some hierarchical being up there, very masculine being, because it's very, sorry, I don't mean gender, but I mean in the masculine consciousness, controlling creation instead of being in the feminine consciousness, which is receiving guidance and receptivity of what's happening and learning from what's happening. So we let go of all of that responsibility. And when we do that, we just sit really and think, well, if we're meant to, you know, that pot of gold's meant to come and land on our lap, we'll just sit here and we'll wait for it. And 50 years from now, we could still be sitting here waiting for that pot of gold to land in our lap. That we've been told, definitely, that it's in our destiny to have a pot of gold land in our lap. We don't do anything. We don't create.
So I guess it's, you know, it's finding that balance between understanding that, you know, the universe is chaotic and random chaotic things happen, and that also through cause and effect things do happen, you know, through our choices. And, you know, I'm going to say perhaps there's two things going on here. Perhaps we look for the coincidences because in doing so we feel more in control, because we like to think that, you know, maybe if we understand why that happened, it gives us a bit more sense of control over what is occurring in our life. And then the, you know, the balance of when, you know, whether it's an illness or a diagnosis, that, you know, there is, when something like that happens and we do go seeking meaning and purpose from, you know, so, you know, why have I got cancer? Or, you know, why is my child going through whatever they are? Or, you know, why is it that a freak accident and I'm now paraplegic.
Mm.
And so out of these, completely uncontrollable scenarios, what I always like to see as opportunities to learn something about ourselves rather than them being all for a reason and a purpose. Yes, there's reason and a purpose, but really, isn't that more about the opportunity to learn something about ourselves in those different experiences?
Definitely. And that's the whole purpose for why we're here. And we're here to learn and we're here to grow. I think too, though, when I say the world is chaotic, the world also is ruled by particular universal laws. And the New Age community has been busy creating all sorts of laws that we live by. And there are really only 12, but but the thing is, there aren't 30 or 20 or whatever that somebody makes up as they go along. But one of the two laws is to remember is the law of resonance and the law of reflection. And they're both based on energy, on vibration. And everything's made of energy and everything's made of a vibration. So don't forget that if you're holding a certain vibration, even if you're not conscious of it, even if it's sitting in one of your energy bodies and you're holding a particular vibration, the law of resonance will call that same vibration to you at times. So be aware of that as well, because once again, come back to the fact that it's not because the big man in the sky has said that you must have this experience. It's simply because you're holding a particular vibration that is calling that experience to you. So it's important to realize that. And this is why it's on our spiritual journey, it's really important to get to know our energy, get to know our vibrational fields, and get to understand what consciousness you really hold, not just in your personality, but in your inner depth and in your, in the many layers of yourself. What consciousness are you holding? And it becomes, when we start our journey of discovering who we are, we can get lots of surprises because suddenly we're meeting consciousness that we didn't even know existed within ourselves. And yet that consciousness is always there and it holds a certain vibration. And that vibration can certainly affect you. I can remember a long time ago when the movie, was it the movie? Whatever it was, The Secret came out. I think it was a documentary or whatever. And it talked about the law of attraction, the big law of attraction. And it was a huge attraction because everyone wants to attract more money. Everyone wants to attract more of something because a lot of people live in lack. So it was this whole thing and it fed into that need and it's still feeding into that need. And the people who created it, God bless them, made a lot of money out of it. Very clever. But they actually forgot about the law of resonance and the law of reflection. Resonance is the law of attraction, but they forgot about the other laws that come into play with laws because no law works on its own. No consciousness works on its own. So, there we all were the first couple of years when that came out, and there we all were doing our vision boards. And I remember people had, their red Ferraris and their yachts and their mansions on it. And they were doing their affirmations so that could come to them. And of course, 2 years later, they're sitting there. They've got no red Ferrari. They've got no mansion. None of that's arrived. And wondering why, because I've been doing my affirmations all this time and I've got my vision board up there and it's not coming. But what was forgotten in all of that was the fact that there's a lot of unconscious energy in our field, in our 12 energy bodies, that was about lack. The very fact that you were following this teaching in the first place meant that you felt you were in lack. So there's a part of your consciousness that really believed in lack. And that consciousness is sitting in your field. So, every time you wanted to bring more abundance into your life in terms of money, then this consciousness would be there and it would vibrate. And through the law of resonance, it would bring more lack into your life, not more abundance. So until you recognize that consciousness and actually brought it back to divine truth to realize that abundance is not about money, when you really understood that abundance is about the feeling of everything you need is here and that you are filled with abundance simply by the very fact of you being present. When you realize that and brought this part of you into that realization, then lots of things would change because you would no longer live from a place of lack. And then you probably wouldn't have been doing vision boards and affirmations anymore because you wouldn't feel a need to. Yeah. So, this is what I'm talking about in terms of understanding that we have free will. We are creating all the time, just like the universe and source is creating, so are we. And we're creating through our thoughts, through our beliefs, through the consciousness we hold that we may not even know about. And so the more we get to know who we are and the consciousness we hold, the vibration that we hold within our being, the more we will understand the law of resonance and the law of reflection and what we're creating and manifesting in our lives.
Thank you for bringing more clarity to that. In what you've said, you were speaking about really understanding the nature of abundance, which is to really understand who and what you are, this beautiful spiritual being filled with light. And that, abundance is about the consciousness of creation energy and understanding that. And so this brings to another myth that I hear, or a statement that I hear that obviously has some kind of belief behind it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be put out there. But, Ishtar, really, not everyone's spiritual. Didn't you know?
No, I didn't, Jo. I didn't know that.
Not everyone's spiritual,
Yes, I know. And, my response to that is, of course, everyone is spiritual. Everyone is spirit. There is not one being on this planet that is sentient, whether it be a human being, an animal being, a tree being, a crystal being, any being that is sentient is spiritual, because it's made of spirit. And so when we step into this energy of separation, thinking that, well, we do some work to connect with spirit more deeply, so therefore we're spiritual, but others are not, then we're simply creating separation through our judgment. And because every single being is spiritual. Now, not every single being knows that they are connected to spirit, or that they are a spirit, a divine source. Not every being has that deep connection. Not every being can see spirit in everybody they meet. So, but spirit is in everything. Every sentient being is spirit. And that's that's just what it is. Doing spiritual work does not make you spiritual. You are already spiritual.
So leads into the next one, which again is one of the teachings that we have in Path of Light with the Masters. And it pops up a couple of times in different ways. First of all in Path of Light, and again in Mystery. And it's the whole conversation, or it's the lesson around your spiritual life being separate to your physical life. And that, again, this myth. And I'm sure some of that stems from what we just said a moment ago about, well, not everyone's spiritual. And so, when you're sitting in that separation and you're not able to see the light in another, then, you're probably the same person who goes off over here and does their spiritual rituals and work and things that they, believe are helping their spiritual path. And then they're back over here, probably in corporate or in the world of, the everyday, and that disconnection of not being able to see how the two are actually merged. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah. And look, this is probably very historical, because I think that in New Age or spiritual communities, we have kept our everyday life and our spiritual work separate. And so we'll go to our yoga class, or we'll go to our spiritual course, or we'll go to our meditation class, or whatever it might be where we connect with spirit for us. And then we'll go to the office and we won't talk about that. But, the interesting thing is, I've had so many students over the years that live like that, totally separate, never told anybody that they did the courses or the work. And then I've had others that have been brave enough, if you will, and they will talk about it, you know, that, oh, I just went to my meditation class, or I just did this path of light, you know, we learned this, and they're in the office and suddenly everyone wants to know. And why is that? Because everyone holds part of spirit within them. So, you know, to be excited about what you're doing is a wonderful thing, and to share it. But of course, we can get, I've also seen the other side where we get overexcited and we have to tell everybody, and we then become the preacher that preaches everything that we've learned, and then nobody wants to have you at the dinner table. So I think we have to be careful about our passion.
That was me in my early years. I put my hand up. I learned a lot from that lesson.
And we do, where we want to preach to everyone we meet about what we're doing. So there's different places, but the thing is, as you know, in the Master's Way, particularly over the 3 years of that mystery school, the most important thing we teach students is really to bring their spiritual self into their everyday life, because it's not separate. And that doesn't mean you have to mantra on the train, or you have to wear white robes to work and all of that, because we don't teach that. We don't teach that you have to do particular things to be, you know, to do the spiritual work. But we do give you tools to work in life, you know, to take out in life, so that you can live as your spiritual self in life and be part of everyday life, but with an open heart. With, you don't have to close everything down. You can exist and be open with who you are and what you are, and be proud of that and honor that in your everyday life. And the thing is, what we teach is that when you do that, when you honor that part of you, then everyone else does. You don't have to preach it, but you simply live it, and everybody else will respect that, you know. And I think that's really important to remember.
Thankfully, I've also noticed that shift as well. Having moved away from the preaching some years ago, and you know, and I think that's also part of the spiritual journey of becoming comfortable with yourself, you know, embracing your spirit and becoming comfortable with your uniqueness. And I had a beautiful conversation with a student the other day around, you know, our uniqueness doesn't mean that we're separate.
No.
Uniqueness isn't about, you know, being separate from. And often we, you know, we can see that, oh, I'm different to this person, or I'm different to this group, and then the ego can get a bit attached to its uniqueness, and all of a sudden create a lot of separation around that idea. And you know, when we're living through our spirit and really embracing our spirit, then you come into this new place of just being comfortable with, and then skin you're in, and then you don't have to prove or preach. Yeah.
And then you get invited to a lot more Christmas parties, you know.
Then you're not the person left off the dinner list. Right, got you.
No. But I think that what you're saying is really important too, because, you know, I hear this a lot. Particularly, we teach a lot of light workers in the Path of the One Heart to remember their gifts and why they're here, because so many light workers have forgotten and get caught up in all sorts of things. And we teach them to get back on the path and to be more focused about why they're here and the gifts they've come to share. Because if you're a light worker, you've come to share something, and it's really important that you remember what you've come to share. And I hear this a lot. Oh, I'm the light worker in my family, you know, and you know, nobody understands me. Yeah, nobody understands me. You know, I'm always been left out of the family and all of that. And to be honest, I feel that, yeah, at times nobody does understand you, because you are slightly different. You have different gifts. But once again, the masters have always taught us that each one of us has our own unique gifts. And whether you're a light worker in the family or whether you're not, it doesn't matter. It's about honoring the gifts everyone has brought to the table. And this is really important for light workers to understand, not to create separation because you feel you're different and you've been misunderstood your whole life. Ask yourself, are you being misunderstood because you haven't understood yourself? And that's usually the case. When you come to understand yourself and to understand why you're here and your purpose, then you will no longer separate yourself from family members or from anyone you love or who loves you. And you will understand that they've got their unique gifts and you've got yours. And we all have different purposes. And we're not all here to do the same thing. And then we come to honor others instead of judging them or, you know, locking them out of our lives because they're not the same as us. And they're not meant to be the same as us.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And this is about honoring the spirit that you are.
Yeah. So, so important. And I know you touched on it just before, you know, but I do think that there is this huge, let's call it myth or, you know, belief that to be spiritual or to walk the spiritual path does require you to follow some set of rules, you know, whether that's the diet you're eating or, you know, the clothes you're wearing or the crystals that you've got on your altar or the incense that you have to burn or whatever it is. It's these kind of set of rules that, you know, seem to define us and define us to either be spiritual or not, based on so
excuse me. Yes, you know, and this is so interesting because so many in the New Age community on the spiritual path who are working with spiritual consciousness and trying to be very conscious in their life are actually don't like following rules. And yet they've created all these rules and boundaries about what it means to be spiritual. And so they can get very rigid about that. So, and just as much as somebody who follows a religion, whether you're Hindu, Buddhist, Catholic, whatever, you know, we get caught up in all these rules. And once again, it's the mind trying to put us in a box. And the thing is, you don't need to follow these rules. You need to simply open your heart and connect with the deep spirit that you are and recognize that light and love that you are and open to that and allow that to be present on the earth through you. It's the whole reason you're here. You're not here to wear white robes or eat certain foods or, you know, you can do all of those things. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's nothing saying you have to be that. That's not going to make you more spiritual or more connected. What will make you more connected is opening your heart and your mind to that deeper place of spirit within you, that miracle of you that sits within each and every being on this planet. And it is a miracle. It is that source consciousness that sits within you that is wanting to create, is wanting to connect, is wanting to love, is wanting to be whole and part of the oneness. And to make that happen here on the earth. And that's what we need to focus on, not what we eat or, you know, follow a good diet because it's going to support your physical body, to support your spirit to stay here so you can actually meet your purpose. Great, you know, but it's not going to make you more spiritual.
I have one more, and I'm so glad that it's the last one. I didn't intend it to be the last one, but from what you've just spoken to, and I think this one is such a precious gift if people can really open to what I feel you're going to say to this. Often I hear on the spiritual path that to heal, I have to be forgiven. And it's placing that, you know, forgiveness upon others. I have to, they have, for me to heal, for me to feel whole again, they have to forgive me. And it's this, you know, whatever one feels one has done, and unless that they receive the forgiveness from the other person, then they won't heal.
And I'm sorry, but it makes me feel very sad in my heart that anyone holds that energy and that consciousness, that they're waiting for someone else to do something for them to heal, for them to let go. And I feel that this comes, of course, once again, and I know it sounds like a broken record, but from religion, that we need to be forgiven by our judgmental God. You know, it's why people go to confession, so that they can be forgiven for their sins, because, you know, religion tells us we're all sinners. But the thing is, it really is important to understand what forgiveness is. And forgiveness means giving over your attachment to whatever consciousness you're holding on to that's creating the energy that you're living in right now. And nobody but you can do that. So if you're holding on to something that is causing you pain, suffering, whatever it might be in your heart or in your mind, it is for you to forgive yourself. That means to let it go, to give it over. Give it over to whom? Give it over to spirit. Give it over to source. To give it over. But what are we giving over? Well, you're giving over the consciousness that's creating your pain, that's creating your suffering. Well, what is that? And take a breath and breathe in and ask yourself, what am I holding that's causing me such pain? Because another person is not creating that for you. Only you are holding on to that. So it's asking you to give whatever it is you're holding to source, to fill it with light from your presence, to wrap it with your love, to let it know that it's okay, that it doesn't need to be continually judged by you, to be continually held in the shadows, in the darkness of your being, because you cannot abide it. It doesn't need to have forgiveness from anyone else, because no one else has the power to do that. Only you. And that's what true forgiveness is. So when we go into that place, then healing can really take place.
Thank you. I think that that's a beautiful place for us to complete.
Yeah.
Because it's a full circle of coming back again to our own power and what it is that we're choosing to create for ourselves. So anybody who feels that they have been misled up until now by any of those beliefs or stories that, as we know, we're so good at creating, then, you know, it's an opportunity to do a little audit. The masters often ask us to do an audit on our beliefs every 6 months.
Yep.
And, you know, I would take a look at the myths that we've done today and back in episode 8. And if any of those sit in your file cabinet of beliefs, then maybe it's time we did a little bit of tidying up and a little bit of work on releasing those.
Let them go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let them go.
Thank you.
Thank you, beautiful
Thank you
heart. Always such a joy to connect.
Yes, love our chats.
Yeah.
I hope everyone else enjoys our chats as much as we do.
We love them.
We do. We
Yeah.
do. So until next time, thank you again for listening.
Blessings.